All right, hello Hackaday. This is Josh Starnes, J Starn One, and this is our second bag we have for testing. And we're going to go ahead and place these gel side this time, completely opposite of the first time. And the reason why I want to do this is, yes, it does slow down the heating of the blood bag itself, but what I would really like to see is more even warming. Okay, so even being the key here. So nice and warm, that's for sure. Okay, so what I'll probably do, if I end up doing it like this, what I'll probably do is get some insulative covering and put it on the side that's not on the gel, or do another gel side. But you don't want to go too crazy with it, because if you get too much thermal mass, it's going to take a long time to heat up the mass, and then it delays at that point. So you got to find a sweet spot is where we're at. So this is the thinnest layer, a single layer of water beads, water being the important part here. It's probably more than 95% water. And these are polyamide 30-watt heaters. I'm running 24 volts to these guys, okay, on each side. Now I wouldn't want to just stick my finger on it and hold it for any length of time. I can touch it without being burnt, but you wouldn't want to stay there because it's going to get hot quick. Right now they're probably running about 150, maybe 160 degrees, warming these water beads. And the heat does spread out, so it is warmer here, and then a little less warm, a little less warm. And once we get all the way over the little edge, guys, then we have obviously less heat, and that's perfectly fine though, because that's actually not directly touching the blood bag. So really, it's just a little bit of thermal mass where it can hold on to a little bit of warmth. It adds to it just a little bit, but it's not directly actually touching the bag. And so basically what we're going to do is we're going to give it a 5-minute mark, and then 10-minute, and then finally at 15 minutes we're going to check it out and see if we're to the point where I would be comfortable in saying this is definitely above 100 degrees. Now I realize that I'm doing that by the seat of my pants, because the thermometer that I have right now is it's one of those touchless thermometers that requires calibration and things like that. It's just really not accurate, so that wouldn't work at all. So I wasn't even going to bother. I have 2 other thermometers, but they're actually connected to a control board, and they don't show you the current temperature. Instead, you set a temperature, and it flips a relay when you get there. So, that's not really going to work either. So that's where we're at. If you guys want to hear me ramble, we can do that, or you can wait until 5-minute mark, and then we'll go ahead and start filling around, seeing where we're at. So just as a reminder, the general design concept here is a layer of the gel on each side of the bag, heating it. So this will be on the table being warm just like it is right now, and prepping for it to go to a patient. And then as soon as it gets up to temperature, then you would unplug it from the power being this, right, from the controller. Once it hits the correct temperature, then we have a little buzzer go off, and hey, it's ready to go, right? So you can pull this out, go take it over to your patient. You can, if they need extended warmth, in other words, they're going into, if it's cold outside or whatever, cold where you're at, or if they're going in an ambulance, things like that, that's at night, then you'll want to keep this on there. If not, this could just be used as a stationary bag warmer, so it's still warm right there. You can put other fluids into it and stuff like that. So salines, platelets, things of that nature. You can set the temperature too as well, so you don't have to go straight to 100 degrees. There's situations where you might, platelets for example, you may want only 80 to 85 degrees. You want it warmer, but you don't want it so warm that it damages the platelets. Apparently, there's some preferred temperatures for other materials, whether it's saline and stuff like that. You don't want to get saline too hot either and keep it too warm. So if you absolutely must, you can, but I've heard saline doesn't breaks down, does weird things. Okay, we're at 5 minutes and 22 seconds, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the top, okay? And I'm just going to fill out, see how we're looking. Wow, okay, so that's much better. So not nearly as warm right here as it was before. Okay, so we're probably at 95 degrees or so. It's close to 100 degrees in the center. When you start touching the outer edges of it, you can definitely feel that's still got the refrigerated thing going on. I would say it's probably 50s, 60s on the edges. So we're going to put it back. Okay, remember our goal here, what we'd like to see is 15 minutes. This thing's ready to go. Okay, we want to be pretty much just as good as just throw it into the heated box more or less, but using less power, less resources. Right now we're running 24 volts on these two pads. Just doing a little bit of math here, we should be at about 3 amps, I think, something like that. So excuse me, because it's split between two 24 volts, we should be at like 1.5 amp. I believe. Hang on, nope, it's too late. I'm doing math wrong. Because it's amps times volts gives us the watts. So 24 and the 60. Yeah, we're gonna have 2 and some change. Hey, my phone just told me I got a like. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. Always appreciate that. Alright, we're at 7 minutes 42 seconds and just a couple of minutes away from checking on the temperature for it. I hope we get close to where we're at, but if we don't, that's okay. There's other options. We can increase power, put more heaters into it, change the gel orientation. We can switch away from the water beads if we have to, because the water beads, they are like a 1/2 inch thick or so maybe a little bit more. So it's possible we could have too much mass there and then it takes too long to heat it up. So we might have to find a balance between our thermal mass and our heating time. So could go as far as to put in maybe 2 extra heaters on each side, spread them out. Maybe put the heaters along the sides specifically. In other words, that way it's not right up on the bag. It's heating towards the bag, but not on top of it. That's not actually a bad idea. It would draw more current that way, but it could not only warm up the gel, but warm up the bag maybe a little bit quicker. We're a minute away from the 10-minute mark. I'm sure probably everybody skipped ahead because they don't like hearing dialogue. I don't like just sitting here not saying anything. So I'll talk about the project. Alright, we're about 30 seconds away, and then I'll take a look at and fill the bag. I actually ended up putting an extra clip on each of the exits, the hose that goes on the blood bag, just in case while it was warming it did something weird like let loose, or I don't know. Never heated blood bags before. So, alright. So, how are we looking? So, a little warm here. We might have a 5 to 10 degree difference here than about an inch away. Okay, we're pretty close here. We're in the 90s or so here. But on the very edge, on the tip, you can still feel it's a little cool. You know, I would say it's probably in the 60s or so right here on the edge. Okay, but mostly it's getting pretty close. So we probably won't hit the 15-minute goal, but such is life. It's still faster than just dumping it in the water. It's probably because the heat's a little more directed. The water will be going all around it, so it is even. You know, there's something to that. There's a reason why they do it. You dump it in a thing of water, and it's going to be more even. You know, there's no doubting that. And you know what? If that something like that ends up being a better project, you know, I'm not one to shy away from throwing everything off the table and go try something else, because you know, the polyamide heaters or things like that, they would work just fine on a small vessel or bag vessel or something like that. Put it inside of a bag vessel and fill it full of water, and then put the blood in it that way, sort of a Ziploc type deal. That wouldn't be horrible. The important parts really are your wires, your heater, and then you're going to have a control unit. Let me get a control unit. Okay, so this is an STC. This guy right here. This is the STC 1000. They're really common. They go for about $10 to $15. This one is 110 volt, so I'd have to have 110 volt wire to it, and then it would turn on and off this. Now the reason why I'm not using this right now is because there's going to be some calibration. There's going to be placement of where the thermistor is. If you put the thermistor right there in the middle, well, it's going to keep cutting the power to it, because this one spot right here would be above 100 degrees. So then that means I would have to purposely set it higher. If I did that, then it would let the whole thing get a lot hotter than 100 degrees before it cuts off. So there are some calibration issues there. I'll probably have to find a place that is the perfect storm, maybe along the side or closer to the bottom, something like that. That's not right up under the heater. So that's why I'm not using it. Instead, I'm just doing it manually right now for the moment, and just checking it. But this will be coming soon. This is something that needs to happen, and I will probably have everything in a little 3D printed box, something like that. That can maybe hang from the end, or let's just imagine this was the end, for example. It doesn't really matter. It's roughly square. But it could be hung and have some punched holes and hung from the bottom, so this could be hung up, or it could be just laid on the table just like it is now. So I don't actually have one of those hangers, so I'm not bothering using one of those right now, and I imagine there won't be a whole lot of those hangers to go around in the middle of a disaster, even though they seem to always have them in the movies. I imagine stretchers and stuff like that don't always come with that stuff. They usually just give you some fluids, throw it on your chest, and let you rip. So, but this is what the ST1000s look like, and one of the reasons why I'm going with this instead of going like a Adreno and stuff like that to begin with is going to have to do with just availability and simplicity. You're going to, I know there's just no light here outside of the light box, but basically you have your two connections here, which are your power supply, two connections which are your sensor, and then you have two connections for either cooling or heating, and you can use those to, it's a relay, so it just flips on and off, and that's how you would run your power through, and it handles up to 10 amps. So really simple, super simple. And from a point of view of these guys being non-skilled workers, imagine this is some moms and some volunteers, and they need to be able to put this thing together and it work. This is closer to where it's at, instead of having some soldering and things like that. I'm not saying that's bad, but if it's pre-made, you can already get it, and it's cheap. It fits the bill. Really, the idea here is for things to be pretty inexpensive. So, and the most reduction of parts. So I'm going to go ahead and set this down here real quick. We're a little over 15 minutes, 40 seconds on the video. So we'll go ahead and check it out and see if we are where we want to be. So this is actually, it's funny, one side of this gel is only mildly warm, but the other side of the gel is very warm. So I guess it's because it's also got the heat coming through on it. Okay, yeah, we are where we want to be. Okay, that is so cool. That is so cool. So we are, man, if we're not at 100 degrees, we are so close to it. I'm gonna put it on my forehead. It's probably gross, but that's so interesting. Like, this is so warm, that's crazy. So it just doesn't transfer very quick. So the gel is doing its job and limiting the amount of transfer that can go through. It's definitely doing its job. It's really close though. It's not quite there. I actually put it up against my forehead, and I usually run about 98 or so, and it feels just a little cooler than me. So we'll keep going till a 20-minute mark. Even if at 30 minutes it was just as good as a bucket of water, there's still a benefit there, and that is, in a disaster situation, 5 gallons of water is kind of important. First off, where are you going to get it, right? You want to open up a bunch of water bottles? You might be able to go find a water faucet somewhere or something like that, but that might be a limited resource wherever you're at. So you can't, completely depend on a method that requires using a pretty valuable resource in that situation, whereas this would require no outside water, water waste, if you will, because once you put this in that water, you're not going to want to use that water for anything else. Blood's in it, right? You're not going to drink with it, you're not going to bathe with it, there's been blood in it. So there's some limitations there that you end up having. You probably would want to use that same water for a different patient. I mean, I guess you really could if you had to, but probably not going to want to do that, because maybe they'll have to bowl it in between, and that's a lot of waste of resources too as well. You got to bowl the water and things like that. So there's ways to get around it, but you still end up with a situation where you're wasting a valuable resource, where you could have this in a small bag, for example. And kind of liking that though, that whole concept of doing that. But the gel, it looks like, to me, it seems like at least, that the gel it does its job, but I think it's too thick. I think I need a thinner gel. So maybe not water beads, maybe I just make my own gel. I could do there's lots of options, making pectin and things like that, but we could probably thin it out just a little bit. That way it has better transfer, but still has some heat retention. When you feel this, you feel that it's slightly warm, but it's not real warm. So I can tell that the amount of mass in here is kind of, And right here, where you see kind of where it separates, there's no physical touch right there, right? So it's got to be touching. And for the most part, I mean, this stuff was in a vacuum, but once it starts heating up, you more or less get steam inside here. It's warming everything, and that's how it's getting its heat transfer, more or less. Is it practically boils in this one little spot. Uh, it eventually basically boils, and then it starts to warm the area around it. I can show you that here in a minute. But it doesn't actually get that hot to the touch necessarily. It takes a while for it to build up, and then it gets a hot spot in between the gel and the heater. And that hot spot is where you start to see a little bit of boiling going on. It's really neat, but that's how it gets the heat transferred around inside this bag, because it was, well, it technically still is a vacuum bag, but it loses that vacuum as far as that squish. It's really tightening down on the gel, and you can see that because you can see the moisture, the steam basically, even though it's just a tiny amount being produced. So we're at approximately what would have been 20 minutes, because I did fiddle far around with it for a couple of minutes, and we'll see where we're at. Oh yeah. Yeah, we're there. We're definitely there. We're there, and maybe a little over. So we're there, maybe a little over. So I would say that's we have hit 100 degrees on that. So I'm happy with that. I'm gonna show you something here real quick. It's pretty cool. That effect that I was talking about that happens inside the gel, where basically because of the heat retention and the gel slowing down the heat transfer, all the heat kind of gets bottlenecked right up against where the heater is, and it basically looks like it's boiling, but it's really just the water kind of moving around and spreading heat and stuff like that. It's really neat. But this one spot here, okay, is really warm. Same goes for this one over here. This one spot right where the heater is on the opposite side is really warm. So that's pretty much it right now. I think that I will get this set up into a larger bag. That's a cool picture probably. I think I'll get this set up into a larger bag and then try it again. That way it's in an actual bag. And that gives it a little bit more of an insulating factor, because everything's squished together and it's hanging. And but yeah, right about the 20-minute mark here, we're definitely above 100 degrees. So it's definitely better than the 30 minutes of just sitting in the water. That's better, and we're not wasting 5 gallons of water that has to be boiled, and then once it's boiled, right, to make it able to drop the blood in and stuff like that, then it has to come down in temperature, and you need it to be about 120, so you got to wait some time so they can put some ice in it or whatever. But they want it sanitary. There's just so many steps to it, and this saves a lot of those steps that you just don't realize here. But again, that's just such a cool little effect with those little bubbles moving around inside there. I just love it. I'm probably going to take a short little clip of it just to show this effect that the gel has with the heat and how it distributes. Again, thank you for everyone's support. Hopefully this makes it into the upper Hackadays. Have a good night.